Did Asian Chinese men wear makeup? Actually, yes, and they were obsessed with it. Step 1. They shaved their beards and used incense burning on their clothes. Just like people use perfumes today, this incense burning was so luxurious that even the emperor had to ban them. Step 2. They used a white powder foundation to make their skin look flawless. Just like today's BB cream. A man, He Yan, never went outside without makeup. He always carried powder to keep his face white, and they even used lip balm. It was colorless or light pink, just to keep their lips soft. But was this considered weird back then? Some people in ancient times also opposed men wearing makeup, but in the end, beauty is a personal choice. What do you think about men wearing makeup? Did you know why ancient Chinese got married at dusk? The answer might surprise you. It actually comes from an old tradition of bride kidnapping, literally taking a woman home by force. Back then, there weren't enough women in the tribe, so they had to borrow from other tribes. Men would team up, grab a girl, and run. But wait, wouldn't it be safer to do this at midnight? Nope, midnight is dark. Imagine grabbing the wrong person. That's why dusk was a perfect time for a raid. But then, why did the brides wear a red veil? Just like how bandits blindfold hostages to stop the bride from recognizing the way home. Even today, in some southern Chinese cities, people still keep the tradition of getting married at dusk.
Subscribe!
Did you know the emperor's robe was almost never washed? Not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't. In the Qing dynasty, designing a dragon robe took multiple revisions. Then 3 different weaving bureaus were assigned to make it. It took 2 to 3 years just to finish one robe, and this robe was incredibly detailed. So instead, they wove it with alcohol to clean certain areas. Then they used scented herbs to keep it fresh. The emperor only wore it once or twice a year, so it rarely got dirty. But if it ever did, they just made a new one. After all, when you are rich, why not? Did you know how ancient Chinese emperors celebrate their birthdays? In the Forbidden City, the emperor's birthday was called 万寿节. Birthday banquet had 6 levels. But the craziest part, they had a feast for the dead. Just how big was this feast? The table stretched from inside the palace all the way outside. And after starving himself, the emperor still had to make a wish. He prayed to his ancestors at the ancestor hall. He could only walk through the east gate. The center gate, that was reserved only for deceased emperors. So was this really just a birthday party? Nope. It was a national ritual, a symbol of imperial power. Did you know how complicated marriage was in ancient China? Step 1. 纳采. The groom's family had to send a gift, but it wasn't money. It was a goose, because it symbolized loyalty. Step 2. 问名. The matchmaker asked for the bride's name, kind of like a background check if the couple's birthdays were compatible. Step 3. 纳吉. If the fortune telling goes well, the groom's family informs the bride's family. Step 4. 纳征. Basically, bride price. And it wasn't cheap. In the Song dynasty, a man sold his land just to marry off his daughter. That land was about $900,000 today. Step 5. 请妻. You couldn't just choose a date. You needed a fortune teller to pick a lucky one. Final step. 迎亲. The wedding day. The bride's arrival, meeting elders, pouring wine. It's basically a wedding marathon. Even though the process was complicated, the couple didn't have to date or meet before the wedding. Everything was arranged by parents and matchmakers. So from a dating perspective, Asian marriage was way easier.
Subscribe!
Did you know that 3 of the most famous Qing dynasty emperors had different zodiac signs? Number 1. Emperor Kangxi, hardworking, practical, and careful with money. He followed the traditions strictly and wasn't a big fan of innovation. Even as a ruler of empire, never wasting resources. Number 2. Emperor Yongzheng. In his early years, he was calm and humble. This personality helped him rise to power. But after becoming emperor, he became strict, cold, and ruthless. Finally, Emperor Qianlong. He was the longest living emperor of Qing dynasty, a perfectionist, detail-oriented, and a bit too demanding. But actually, most Chinese emperors were born under the Cancer sign. But that might not be accurate. China had 422 emperors in total, and many of their birthdays are still a mystery. Why didn't ancient Chinese wives mind their husbands taking concubines? Some even helped find one. first, their roles were completely different. The wife was the lady of the house. She managed the family and wealth, but a concubine, she was more like a companion the husband paid for. Second, their backgrounds were different. Wives usually come from wealthy families, while concubines were often from poor backgrounds. And their treatment was completely different too. A wife could punish a concubine, but if a concubine fought back, she'd face serious consequences. So why would some wives actively help their husbands find concubines? The more concubines a man had, the higher his social standing, which also made the wife's position more skilled. In the Song dynasty, the famous scholar Wang Anshi's wife spent the equivalent of $19,000 to buy him a concubine. So wives were not jealous. They were more focused on securing their own position. Did you know ancient Chinese women didn't wear underwear? But why? Actually, before the Han dynasty, nobody wore underwear. Men wore pants, while women wore long skirts. Back then, clothing had two parts. The top was called Yi and the bottom was Shang. But here's a real question. Weren't they afraid of accidents? That's why they had so many rules. No crossing their legs. No going outside on windy days. Otherwise, then, during the Han dynasty, someone finally invented Qiongku. Later, they added an extra layer inside, and that slowly turned into today's underwear. But just imagine having to follow all those strict clothing rules. It must have been so tough. Why didn't ancient Chinese love eating fruit? Because they had a totally different way of eating it. In ancient China, sour plums weren't snacks, they were seasonings. After the Han dynasty, fruits arrived in China. Grapes became a must-have at fancy noble banquets. Pomegranates symbolize fertility and prosperity. They used them for blessings. And apples, almost no one ate them in ancient China. Instead, they were used as natural air fresheners. The Qing Empress Dowager Cixi used 115,000 apples a year just for their scent. So in ancient China, fruit was just a side character. But some people were obsessed, like Yang Guifei. I'm a fruit lover too. Cheers!
Subscribe.
Did you know what fashionable women wore in China during the Republic era? The show begins. Inspired by Manchu clothing, the qipao highlights a woman's figure, elegant, timeless, trench coats, high heels, and permed hair. Western fashion took Shanghai by storm. A blue top with black pants, a symbol of youth, knowledge, and simplicity. A separate top and skirt design with a Chinese touch, simple yet elegant. I'm Jiemo. Which one did you like? Did you know what seasonings ancient Chinese used for cooking? The first kind of sauce was actually made from meat, chopped meat plus salt, sealed and dried in the sun. It wasn't until the Han dynasty that people started making sauce from soybeans, sealed and left in the sun for 100 days. And that's how doubanjiang was made. My favorite, the perfect topping for rice. One of the most popular seasoning was called ji, a mix of different flavors, ginger, garlic, salt, plums, and vinegar. This sounds just like hot pot dipping sauce. Next time, I want to try this Asian recipe.
Subscribe.
Mosquitoes are so annoying. But did you know ancient Chinese had their own ways to fight them? They found that mosquitoes hate smoke, so they burn herbs like mugwort. By the Song dynasty, it became mosquito incense. Scholars and nobles also used fragrance poultices. These were filled with patchouli, mint, star anise. Not only did they smell nice, but they also kept mosquitoes away, just like how we use perfume today. During the 2016 Rio Olympics, Chinese athletes used mosquito nets to protect themselves. But that's not even the craziest part. Asian people raised frogs to eat mosquitoes. They even invented mosquito killer lamps. Why does this look so familiar?
Subscribe.
In ancient China, there was a banquet called the Burning Tail Feast. 烧尾宴 had to celebrate promotions or passing exams. How extravagant was this feast? The ingredients were super rich, with 58 different dishes. Let's pretend we are having a taste. This is a noodle dish made to look like 17 dancers in a performance. A sausage made from lamb bone marrow and beef intestines. It's made from frog and looks like a little baby. These dishes not only taste amazing, but are also a visual feast. But it only lasted for 20 years. Because the common people were starving, the emperor ordered the end of this extravagant feast. I may never have had a fancy feast like that, but it's a simple, everyday meals that that really matter. In ancient China, exile was a severe punishment, almost like a slow death sentence, because being sent to a remote, deadly place often meant never coming back. And the worse your crime, the farther you were exiled. Even if you made it there alive, life was brutal. No good food, no good shelter, basically slow torture. But why didn't they just run away? They were literally marked for life. Their crime was tattooed on their face. There was nowhere to go, just endless wilderness. Today, places like Hainan and Sanya are tourist spots, but back then, they were prisoners' worst nightmare. Did you think Chinese people always ate around a big table? Actually, for 3,000 years, people ate separately. Why? It's all because of how they sat. In ancient China, there were no chairs. People had to kneel. This way of sitting made it hard to move, so everyone needed their own table. But when chairs were introduced, sitting changed. So did dining. By the time of the Song dynasty, around 1,000 years ago, Chinese people had completely switched to sharing dishes at one table, just like today. So how people sat changed the Chinese food culture forever.
Subscribe.